What did they call you?
My name is Joe. They just call me Joseph.
What are you incarcerated for, and how long is your sentence?
So I'm incarcerated for murder robbery. My sentence is life without parole, 25 to life, and 6 years, 8 months on top of that.
Where are you from right here on the streets?
I am from the Bay Area.
Do you or did you belong to any type of gangs, groups, organizations?
Yeah, I used to be from Mara Salvatrucha, MS-13. My name is Joseph. I'm hoping that my story can relate to somebody that's young out there, maybe on the road that I was on, and maybe be able to prevent them from making the mistakes I made. Well, I grew up bouncing around between my grandmother's house and with my mom. My mother is a lifelong addict. She she pretty much did everything you could think of. She's a career criminal. My father, he was a addict. They met, obviously before I was born, and he was a bouncer at a massage parlor. The massage parlor was a front for a prostitute house. Anyhow, they ended up getting together and having me. Their lifelong addictions prevented them from actually being parents, so they split up soon after they were married, and I was left with my grandparents. My grandparents loved me a lot. I grew up in and out of that home. Unfortunately, my mother would come and uproot me. I'd end up with her running around the streets of San Francisco, Marin, Richmond, wherever, to go copper drugs and do whatever. I would get left places, end up at people's houses I didn't know, living at places I didn't know with people I didn't know, and my grandparents would usually have to come get me through my godmother. Unfortunately, that ended me up on a different path. I started committing crimes with my mom when I was about 12, 13 years old, and as we went along doing that, I would go back and forth between her home and my grandparents' home. I never really had anybody really to be accountable to. I don't know if that makes sense, but I thought I was grown at an early age of 12 and I didn't have to answer to nobody. My grandparents, they kind of enabled me to believe that too because they felt bad that my parents weren't around. In 1996, my father died of an overdose. My mother was in prison for prior commitment crimes, in and out, violation after violation. And in 1997, I had my first son. I was about 17 when he was born. Shortly after that, I got into some trouble, and I ended up with this life crime that I'm talking to you from right now.
Okay, so you're telling me you're currently serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole, correct?
Yep.
If you kindly would, break it down, man, to the very beginning of what it is that happened leading up to the day,
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Like, what was it that happened?
In my life crime?
Yes, sir.
What are you talking about? So, in 1998, I was out driving around with some friends, and I got a page. That page asked me to do somebody a favor and go along on a collection. That collection, unfortunately, led to a home that I went to. I was armed, and I went with two individuals I really didn't know. Both of them were older than me. We went to the home. We knocked on the door. Nobody answered. We came back, knocked again. This time we were admitted entrance. When we got inside, two of the individuals started talking, and there was some money asked about, and somebody said they didn't have money. It turned into an argument. Well, the guy's mother came to the door, and one of the men I was with left. He took and escorted her to the bathroom and turned on some water, and I don't know what happened because I wasn't in that room. But while he was gone, I was in the room, and things started going crazy. People started yelling, dogs were barking, guns got pulled out. Next thing you know, I have a gun out. I stood on the bed, and as I stood on the bed, I demanded that nobody do anything stupid. Well, I guess the dude grabbed what we were there to collect for and went to hand it to me. But once he sat on the bed, his head hit the barrel of the gun, and the gun went off. once the gun went off, I seen a puff of hair and scalp fly in the air. And that moment, I seen that, I took off running. And I ran, and I ran, and I ran. That was that night that my life changed. And so did the young man's, that his life ended up ending because of my choices.
You said that the victim accidentally tapped the barrel of the gun and it went off. And was the gun in your hand?
I was holding a 410, and when he sat down, his head hit the barrel of the gun. His head hit it, and that's when it went off. So 410s, they don't have one of the things that you grab the choke and you crack it back and forth, like on a regular 12 gauge. It has.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
It has one of those things at the top of the, where the hammer's at, and you just pull it back. Well, I pulled it back, not really understanding. I armed it, so I armed it. When he sat down and he hit his head, it just went off. There was no trigger, none of that. It just went off. Boom.
Would you be able to call me back?
Yeah, I can call you right back.
Going back to the conversation, unfortunately, this gentleman, he hit the barrel of the weapon. It went off. Obviously, I'm pretty sure that shocked you. That shocked everybody else who must have seen that or heard that. What did you do? Where did you go? Like, how did you get caught?
So I ran. I ran and I ran and I ran, and I got to the house of one of my co-defendant's friends. I called somebody. They came and picked me up. They picked all of us up. We dropped them off, and from that point, I went home, and I threw up, and I threw up, and I threw up. I was nauseous. I was sick. You know what I mean? I couldn't believe what happened. I told my mom, and my mom told me to run. You know what I mean? So I did. I took off. I took off to Lake County. From there, I went from Lake County. I stayed with some friends up there, and I partied and kind of just got high the whole time and drunk. And I continued drinking and getting high. And then I made it to San Francisco. From San Francisco, I went back to Marin. From Marin, I went back to Sonoma. From Sonoma, I went back to San Francisco. Finally, I got to my mom's house, and I stayed up there for the weekend. And from that point, I was going to go to Mexico. Unfortunately, during that time, or fortunately, because I don't know where my life would have led if I would have kept running, I believe my mother, she called her parole officer, and her parole officer called the Fugitive Recovery Task Force, and they came and arrested me at her house. So when they came in and got me, there was about 30 Fugitive Recovery Task Force in San Francisco PD outside my door with 20-gauge shotguns and 12-gauge shotguns, told me to turn around, walk on my knees back to them, and they cuffed me. That was the first encounter. From there, they took me down to the substation. From the substation, I went to 850 in Bryant, which is the county jail. The next morning, I was extradited down to Sonoma County. Once they got me to Santa Rosa, they tried to interrogate me, and I told them I wanted a lawyer. I had no conversation for them. I did not give a statement. Because at that time, I was still in that mentality, right? And I never gave a statement. They tried to get me to speak to them. I had no conversation for them. They took me to the county jail. I ended up being charged with murder, robbery, burglary, false imprisonment, and all kinds of other things that were like gun enhancements and other things like that, right? I ended up going to trial. It was a very quick trial. I had everybody telling on me. Everybody was telling on me. My co-defendants, people I didn't know, everybody. So there was another man, and he said, you know what, since everybody's telling on you, he goes, there's not a problem with this. He goes, lying is not telling. I'm going to write you a story because I know all these people told on you. I said, all right, I'll do that. So anyhow, long story short, he wrote me a story. I showed it to my lawyer. My lawyer said, look, man, I know you did it because you already told me you did it. He said, you told me it was an accident, and I know you did it. So he goes, I can't ask you questions if you get up there. I have no possibility to ask you anything because I know you're lying. I'm an officer of the court. I cannot ask you any questions. He said, if you're going to go up there, I can just, like, ask you one question. You're gonna have to just give it freestyle story. So I did, and he advised me against it. He said, dude, you either go up there and tell him you did it and it was an accident.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Don't say nothing at all. Well, 18-year-old kid, right? 19-year-old kid. I'm not gonna listen to him. I went up there and I was like, all these people are telling on me. I'm gonna make them all suffer. Excuse the language. I'll make them all suffer, right? And I thought I was getting them back for actually telling on me because I didn't believe lions telling. So anyhow, I made a fabricated story instead of going up there and taking responsibility for what I did. You know what I mean? I ended up getting convicted on May 5th. The jury came back and convicted me within 2 weeks of that because I wanted to be speedy and get to prison because I don't know what's going on with me. I waived everything, and they came and got me, and they said, look, we're going to sentence you to life without parole, 25 to life, and 6 years, 8 months. There was no pleading. There was no breakdown. There was no mercy. There was no nothing. They gave me $10,000 in restitution, which I paid in full. And from this, I've done 25 years already of that time.
So whatever happened to your buddies?
As far as, well, some of them are out there, some of them are dead. You know what I mean? I've lost a lot of friends through the years, either to drugs or gang violence, and the couple that are left, they've gotten their stuff together and they're just family men now. A lot of them, you know what I mean? Most of them have grown out of it and they're just doing them, man. They're living a life, and every once in a while I run into an old friend in here somewhere, you know what I mean? And I tried really not to hang out with them. I'll be honest with you. I really don't.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I really don't try to reunite that old friendship. I mean, there's no point of it. You know what I mean? It's not my life no more. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to earn my freedom. I'm trying to earn it. I have, become a dog trainer. I've gone to college. I've done trade school for dog training for canine specialists. I'm still taking classes. I'm still doing things. I'm doing groups. I would like to get out and either, train dogs for a living, work with children, because I worked with a group in here called Juvenile Diversion Program. We mentored youth that were on the same track as I was, and them guys that are on the fence but never fully over the fence, but sooner or later they're going to end up over the fence and in some real trouble. So I would like to do that, or I like to put them together, right? And I like to work something where, you can teach these kids some empathy, some patience, some love, that they have some value through these animals, because that's what it did for me. It showed me my worth. It showed me that I'm redeemable. It showed me that I had value. It showed me that I was a human being that had something that I could give to others. You know what I mean? Every dog I've completed has gone somewhere, whether it be to a courthouse, to a firehouse, to somebody with autism. Whatever it has been so far has made me have some confidence and value as myself as a human being, because that's something I was lacking my whole life.
Do you feel you deserve to be free?
I don't know if anybody deserves to be free after they commit a crime. I think I'm more valuable on the streets than I am in prison. I think I have more value. I think I could do more for the world out there than I can in here. I don't know if I deserve any freedom. What I did, I can't take back, and he sure can't have his life back. So, you know what? I probably don't think so. I don't think I can say that I deserve anything. Take time, think about what you do before you do it. Measure that twice. You're in construction. You measure things twice before you nail it down. You should do that in your lifestyle. Be good. Love your family. Most of these people don't care about you. The only people that do is your family and your loved ones.